Which situations should you be limping pre-flop? I've trained myself with RCM calculator, which is obviously shove fold, but you and other single specialists often limp from the small blind. What makes certain situations and others a fold or a shove? Cheers, great stream. Thanks, Antoine. Alright, well, there's a few situations. One is in the early stages when you have a lot of blinds, you can just limp with small pairs for set value in any position. So under the gun, pocket twos, 75 big blinds effective. In a low stakes game, you can just limp and try and hit a set, right? The other main situation for limping is what's called a limp stab in the small blind. And what that means is that you just limp the small blind, and your plan, it's just you and the big blind, is to bet any flop. And it's called a limp stab, and it's a cheap way of stealing against weaker players. It doesn't work against good aggressive players and regulars, because when you limp, they're going to play aggressively in position. They're going to raise you. They're going to play post flop very well in position. But it's a very good way of stealing blinds against passive players and unknown players and weaker players, because those kind of players, they just want to see a flop. If they don't hit a pair, they're just going to fold, and 2 out of 3 times they're going to miss and they just fold. So you don't need to raise against those guys, because raising, you have to invest more chips. You can just limp and then bet the flop, and you get the same job done, but you invest less chips. So that's the main way that you limp. Antoine. Apart from, there are a few other situations, but they're way more advanced. Like, you can limp the button on some occasions, but it's just too hard for me to explain it, because it's very opponent dependent. It depends a lot on who the blinds are, what the stack size is, whether it's the bubble. So there are other situations where you can limp profitably, but if I get a spot like that, I will explain it in game. But it's hard for me to give you enough examples to explain it now, I guess. Yeah, I know, Axel 10. I used a Table Ninja for sure. I've done all the programs. I've used everything. I've done the method where you stack and then you bring the tables out. It just didn't work for me. I tried my hardest, but it didn't work. Alright, let's go, guys. Final table. Oh, look at the stacks. Okay, 5,000 blinds. So 50,000 is 10 big blinds. 100,000 is 20 big blinds. So we have 200,000. So we've got 40 big blinds. Who's the big stack? This other guy down here with 200,000, and us with a big stack. Everyone else has between 10 and 20. This guy only has 4 big blinds. So as the big stack, you want to prey on the little short stacks and really put pressure on the medium stacks, but you do not want to get into big pots with the other big stack. Like, it really sucks if you bust out now in 9th against the other chip leader. That's really terrible for your ICM. So you just want to try and steal a lot against the short stacks, and if the other big stack is getting involved, play very, very carefully. I like this raise, putting pressure on. I would raise this one as well. I would at least think about it, because everyone's going to play very... Like, the thing about this is, if you raise, what does Booncoll 555, what does he do if he has ace-10? Like, he has to fold, because there's a short stack in the big blind, you're raising first position as the big stack, so everyone has to play very tight against you. The only person who can actually put pressure back on you is UFO. So if UFO 5555, if he is very aggressive, then I would just fold here, because it's a good spot for him to 3-bet you and put the pressure back on you. But if he's tight and he's just playing, ABC poker, I think I would raise this, because everyone's going to be very tight, and if it's just you and the short stack big blind, who cares? It's ace-6 suited, and he's got 4 big blinds. So I would probably raise this more than likely. Okay. Okay, let's just look at pot odds. We're getting pretty much 2-1, but it's one of the worst hands. Now, the other thing to think about is, if you call this, how does it affect your stack? Well, you lose 19,000 chips. It doesn't affect you too much. It doesn't affect you at all, actually. Like, you're still going to be comfortably in second place. So, I mean, I just call here, I think. even though it's a really bad hand, we're getting the correct odds, and it doesn't affect our chip stack at all. Like let's say that 19,000 chips, if you lose those, it makes it like if you have 90,000 and you lose 19,000, it could be a big deal. But because you have, and or if you lose a chip lead, let's say that you have that this guy has 180, right? And if you lose the 19, well, now he has the chip lead over you. He might start putting more pressure on you. So that might be an argument for just folding. But in this situation, I just be like, fuck it. 2-1, any two cards. Let's go, buddy. What do you got? Can you make table larger? Oh yeah, sorry. There you go. How's that? Yeah, I captured it in OBS, so it's as big as I can make it now. UFO is aggressive, he's a very good reg. Okay, well then that's an argument for just folding the ace-6 because he's a good reg. Every player was a hardcore reg. Okay, good read then. Then actually that makes me want to call this even more. If this guy's a regular, I'd just snap call this because knocking out any player is going to provide good value, especially when they're a good regular. And it's also, it makes it so that you know he can push here very loose. Yeah, so any chance you get to knock out a good regular, getting pretty much 2-1, go for it. So good read. Everyone's a regular. Alright, that makes my decisions easy. Well, not easy, but easier without the reads. Raise. This is a limp stab. Raise pre-flop. Look at how much pressure you can put on him. There's two guys shorter than Carl's hand, so he's just trying to limp stab you. When you know that he's a regular, you know that he knows. You know that he knows what this move is. He knows what a limp stab is. Therefore, he's doing this with a wide range. Therefore, you raise any two cards. Just put the pressure back on him. Make it 1,500. Sorry, 15,000. Make it 17,000. Something like that. Just do not check. Good. For me, the sizing's a little big because now you're giving him really, really good incentive to just shove all in. He could limp shove because you made it very big. I want to make it as small as possible so that, you know, he's not going to want to limp shove and he can't really call getting insane odds. And he doesn't want to play the hand out of position against you anyway. So I think, you know, 1,800 is the absolute maximum I would make it, but I prefer like 1,600 or 1,500 or 1,700. Good. I am very happy that you did raise though. I just think your sizing's a little off. So now the UFO has 300,000. He's a big chip leader. You have to be very, very tight against him, especially on your button. Basically, if you raise your button, you're not folding because he is going to 3-bet you if you raise. Therefore, you have to 4-bet, and he probably knows that, so he's going to 5-bet. So if you raise your button, you're going broke. So if you don't want to raise, and you have a hand like ace-6 suited, just limp. King-jack suited, just limp. I would limp a lot on this button with playable hands, rather than raising. So whoever asked about limping before, Antoine, very good example of where limping the button can be an excellent strategy. Because if we raise, the big blind is going to put a lot of pressure on us by 3-betting. So you don't want to bloat the pot and make the pot enormous against the other chip leader. Just limp. And if he raises you, you can just call, you keep the pot much smaller, and you still get to see a flop and play in position. Yeah, so like Jack 10 suited, just limp. 8-9 suited, limp. 10-9, limp. Queen Jack suited, limp. All those Broadway combinations, just limp. Small pairs, like not really, because they're really good 5-bet bluff hands. So it's kind of crazy with this ICM though. Maybe you can just limp those as well, but they don't play very well post-flop. So I might just raise them and then just fold if he 3-bets, rather than limping small pairs, but you can limp a lot in this situation. Very good example of when you can limp. Okay. Have to play tight because this guy has position on us with 400,000. Yep, gotta fold. I mean, there's not much you can do in this spot because this guy's a good aggressive player and he has position on you. You're just handcuffed. You need a hand to play. Oh, it was the same guy, Mexcrin? Okay, I don't remember that. Yep, nothing you can do. Perfect example, just limp. Limp, 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 limp. Please limp. You're gonna get exploited. See, he knows that you cannot call here very wide. So his play should be to shovel in, or at least 3-bet. I would 3-bet here 75 to 100% of my hands. If I didn't want to do that, I would just call. It's very rare that you'll see me fold in this spot, even 2-3 offsuit, because you can put so much pressure on the button. As the chip leader, 5-handed, he's very comfortably in second place, and there's a super short stack who's in the big blind next hand. So UFO, if I see him fold here, it's a mistake. I would play 100% in this spot. I mean, he might not know that, but that's what I would do. Yeah, like just call, 3-bet, jam. They're all really, really good here. So I think if you want to play perfectly against UFO, don't raise this hand. You can raise some hands as a bluff, but you want to raise a more polarized range. So polarized means that you play the same range with the bottom and the top of your range, and the middle part you play differently. So the middle part is like when you play the whole range the same, it's called merged, and when you play just the top and bottom, it's polarized. So here I would polarize. So I only raise with pure bluffs like blockers, like ace-2, offsuit. I wouldn't limp that hand because it plays terribly post-flop. But I want to play it because I have one blocker. So I just raise ace-2 as a bluff, and I'd raise the traps, right? So I'm willing to go broke. So aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace-king, ace-queen, tens, just raise. That's the top part of the polarized range. And the bottom part is like all the blockers that I don't want to limp, so that don't play very well, like weak offsuit aces, small pairs I guess you can steal as well, but there's no blockers in those. Maybe you can turn a hand like king 8 offsuit into a blocker raise as well if you felt like it. But yeah, these kind of hands where you really want to see flops, and they flop very well, I would include in my limping range. So I would limp like all suited broadways, a lot of suited connectors. Yeah, and hands like queen 9 suited, fine to limp. Now, if he's good and he knows what you're doing, he might try and exploit you, but it's very hard for him to do that. Because think about it, how's he going to exploit you? Is he going to shovel in for 200,000? I mean, he might, but it's very risky. The way that he might try to exploit you is by just raising preflop, but that's fine, because then you just call, you play a pot in position with king 10 suited. That's fine. Now, if you think that he's just jamming all in, and that's his way of countering your limps, just start limping aces, limp kings, limp ace king, and you can counter it that way by including your traps in your limp range to balance. This is kind of high level strategy, guys, so hopefully you're getting it, but it's this is the top level. What does the 30 on the table behind you means? That's the date. It's Gen Khan's birthday. If I know he's going to pressure me and 3-bet near 100%, can't I appeal more often? I mean, yes, of course you can, Jimmy, but the problem with that is that he's also going to pressure you on flops, turns, and rivers. So by calling a lot of 3-bets, you're playing very big pots in a situation where the ICM really matters. You're comfortably in second place, there's a lot of big money in the top 2, and there's a short stack around. So even if he's 3-betting you a wide range, you can assume that he's going to 3-barrel. Are you going to call down 3 barrels in a 3-bet pot with second pair? Are you going to call down with ace high? Are you going to call down with top pair no kicker? The answer to that question is probably no. So what you end up doing by calling more 3-bets is that you just put more money in when you're going to fold on future streets without hitting like the absolute nuts. And it's just not going to happen that often. So the better way of playing, in my opinion, is to keep the pot smaller so that you're much more comfortable calling down with those weak hands like ace high and second pair and third pair because the pot's it's not risking your whole stack. If you limp 7,000 and he makes it like 20,000, the pot's 40, he c-bets 18. You've only called 50, right? Then on the turn, you can see a turn card and still have 3 times pot left. 2.5 times pot left. So it's just much more easy to see the full board and the full rundown and get more information. But if you call 3-bet pot, you raise 14, he 3-bets to 45, you call, the pot's 90, you have 120 left. You just see a flop. Because if you call flop, you're probably calling turn because there's only going to be, the pot's going to be 200,000 and you'll have like 50,000 left. So, yeah, I just think that, of course, theoretically, if you call more 3-bets, it's going to be fine because he's 3-betting a wide range, but you have to have the balls to not fold like really weak hands on flops. And, you know, I just don't think that that's the correct play in a sit and go when there's a lot of ICM now that we're only 5-handed and there's big money in top 2. Play smaller pots. Am I talking from the past? I'm talking from the future. 90 seconds in the future. Yeah, I mean, if you guys aren't using the limp in your range and you're like mid-stakes players, I'd say that you need to at least think about it because it makes sense in situations like this where people, good regulars, can exploit your raise because of the ICM factors. You know, you can counter that by limping. So yeah, just think about it. You can ask me more questions, but that's a perfect example of when limping the button is a fantastic play in my opinion. Some people don't do that, but I think that they're stuck in like 2013 when no one limped. You know, 2013, if you limped at any point in a poker game, you're a fish. But we're in 2015 now, and you've got to be more creative. Raise. Oh, he's a good reg, but I mean, he's a good reg, but I guess it kind of depends on how he's playing. And if he's an aggressive reg, I don't mind the fold. But if he's like an unknown reg or he's a little bit on the tight side, I would definitely put the pressure on him and raise because of stack positions. It's him and Calzy hand. They want to pay jump. So he's not going to play super loose against you, but he might. You know, it depends on the player. So that's kind of player dependent whether you limp stab even or raise. Limp stab might work against some regulars. Look at his stats, I guess would be my advice for that hand. This is better. I really don't like folding this one because you folded last hand. So he knows that you folded last hand. He knows that you're not playing 100%. Therefore, raise this one. Even if this is not the best raise, it is better than the last hand you had, and you folded last hand, so you have a better image. So you look tighter, so he's going to give you more respect when you do raise. So therefore, I would definitely raise this one. Okay, so you can, I guess you can shovel in. It's a little bit of a big shove though. I would not fold. I think just calling's the better play, playing in position. Now that you're 3-handed, there is some ICM, but you, J-Varms and Big Watts, Jimmy and Big Watts, you're pretty close in terms of stacks. So you're a bit more comfortable calling down loose. Alright, so if you can play well post-flop in position, just call, because your plan is to like call flop with, basically you're calling any flop, unless it's terrible, really bad, like 3 broadways and you have no flush draw, then you can just fold, I guess. You're calling like most flops, and then you're playing a turn card. If you're not willing to take that line, just push pre-flop. Or you can even bluff raise and then fold pre-flop. That would be okay. Kind of exploitable, but if you maybe include that line against this guy with some value hands, then it's a really good chance to turn this a6 into a bluff rather than shoving all in, because it's a little bit of a big shove for this stack. So you could 3-bet bluff, make it like 35,000, and then just fold if he 4-bets because you have a blocker. But like if you have history and you have a dynamic where you're rebluffing a lot, he's not going to believe you, and he's probably just going to jam it in as a 4-bet bluff with hands that are worse than this. So there's certainly different lines you can take, and it really depends on how he's playing against you and how confident you are playing post-flop and in position against him. Call. I would have called turn, obviously, and I guess we just check now. I just don't think there's enough value in taking this line. If your plan is to fold, it's a terrible bet, because you have way too much showdown value and too much redraw equity to bet fold. So the only way that this would make sense is if you're inducing him to bluff you, and you're snap calling with second pair and a flush draw. Now that could be okay, but I think because of the ICM, I don't like that in this situation. I would much rather just play cautiously and bluff catch the river. If you're planning on folding here, then it's a really, really bad play, because you have a lot of equity and you have the redraw equity. So you never want to bet fold in this spot. So, and I think inducing here with a pay jump against another short stack when he's still around, I don't like it. With 9-2, if he knows I'm shoving any 2, he's going to call light. Yeah, of course. It depends on the player. Like I said, JimmyCrackers. Of course. If he knows you're shoving any 2, he has to call 75%, I think. Like, he snaps you there with any queen, any suited 10, 8-7 offsuit to call. Like, yeah, of course he's calling you wide, but it depends on the player. Some people don't do that. Sorry. Alright. Wow. Well, you could 3-bet, but again, it's just not a good spot to do. He's putting you in the cage. You have a really strong 3-bet hand. It's a pretty strong hand 3-handed, a suited ace, but the ICM, you're in comfortable second place. He's in position against you now. I think you just have to fold. It's pretty gross though, mainly because of the stack position. Like if you were the short stack, this would be an easy repush. If you had Big Watt stack 100,000 and he had your stack and you were in the same position, you would reshove this hand because it's well ahead of his steal range. But yeah, the problem here is just ICM, and it's like risk reward. It's not worth the risk to try and mess around with this guy when he has you crushed in terms of chips and position. So you just have to fold. Bet jam turn with the a6. Okay, so you're planning on bet calling. Yeah, I mean that. Like I said, that's fine. I think that line is fine. But yeah, if you're happy to get it in, then it's not terrible. But I think it's still more risky than just checking and then bluff catching a river. Because then, if you do lose the hand somehow, you're not out of the tournament, and you still have a pretty comfortable stack, 3-handed, with more than 10 big blinds. But if you bet call the turn, there's another guy that's short as well. Like I said, it's fine. The line is fine. I think you can get enough value, but it's a bit too risky for me, and I like playing the more ICM approach in that 3-handed spot, because there is some significant ICM now that you're deep in a 180-man 3-handed. The pay jumps do get quite big, so you do need to play a little bit safer in spots like that, in my opinion. Yeah, it's definitely opponent dependent though. If he's crazy, Sure, use that hand as a value hand. Go for it. Like, I don't think it's bad. Again, super exploitable, because if small blind folds, what do you think the big blind's going to do? He's going to 3-bet the shit out of you. Now, are you going to 4-bet fives? Maybe you are. If your plan is to 4-bet, then it can be a great play. But he might just 3-bet shovel in, because you're only raising with 25 big blinds. And that would be a good play from him. So this raise is kind of exploitable, but like, you can't really use the limp play in this situation, because the fives, if you do see a flop, plays pretty terribly post flop, even in position. It's hard for you to see 5 cards comfortably, because if you don't hit a set, like, there's going to be overcards and draws, and it's just tough. So I don't mind the raise, even though it is kind of exploitable, because the big stack's going to put so much pressure on you. It's just your best option, really. And you do need a raising range here, so that when you do have aces and he does put the pressure on you, you know, you can stack off and he doesn't just think that you only raise with aces and you limp with everything else. So, I don't mind the raise, for sure. Ugh, what do you do here? It's kind of ugly. Kind of ugly. It depends on his range. God, I bet Ishi knows, guys. Hang on. Oh, sorry. Alright, yeah, so it really just depends on this big Watts guy, what he's reshoving. To be honest, I don't exactly know like how wide he has to shove to make this a call in this structure, because I don't play 180s that often anymore. But I think that just by guessing, he'd have to be shoving at least 30%, I would say. Yeah, so just if you're shoving that much, or the best way to do this spot is just put this hand into an ICM calculator, put the payout structure, and you can get it perfectly. You can put his range in there, you can put your hand as a call, and you can find out whether it's a call or not. It's very easy to calculate this hand. So I'm just guessing, and I would say he'd have to reshove 30%. That's my guess. I could be wrong though. You guys, you know, I could be wrong. So 30%, whatever that is, be like this. He's probably not folding an ace, so you know, ish. This ish. Any Broadway, any pair, any high suited connector, high suited 10, 9, and a few offsuits, maybe. You know, like something like this, I would suggest. Then maybe fives is a call. Maybe it's not. Maybe he needs to be pushing more than that. You got to figure this out on yourself with your reads on the opponent. You're the only guy that really knows what to call here. I can give you guesses, but yeah. Nice, win a flip, must be nice. Okay, so we're now heads up. We're 35 big blinds deep. So you can play some heads up. All right, let's go. How many heads up hands do we have? Holy shit, there's a lot of hands. Alright, well, I'll preface this heads-up review by saying that I'm not the best heads-up player in the world. I can give you my opinion, but there are certainly better players out there who will probably disagree with me in some spots. But I'll do it anyway, just to tell you how I would play it. But yeah, if you want some better heads-up strategy, you can probably find it on the internet. But yeah, let's go. I mean, I would defend this 40 big blinds deep against the min-raise. I'm defending anything that looks decent, so good enough. Value. You can 3-bet bluff, you can just call. Yeah, that's your only really play. I think just calling is way better because it has enough value. So your line here is check, call, check, call, check, call, check, call, check, call, check, call. If he shoves, you still call because your hand strength's too strong, and he could have busted spades. He obviously doesn't really put you on an ace. So yeah, you're never folding that hand. Don't fold buttons. 10-5 is like good enough, right? If you're not gonna, I guess against regulars you can fold the bottom 10%, but not this. raise or limp. Both are good lines. Call, it's fine. Wow, that flop. Check raise. Nope. Value bet turn. Yeah, I like it because I think I want to value bet against hands like Queen 10, Queen Jack, 8x, and maybe worse nines. Probably not. Definitely just 8x, I think. 5x. Ace high, Queen Jack, Queen 10. Need to bet. Check call. Like, I think it's still profitable, but it's inferior in my opinion. You get more value by just betting. And when we're playing against other regulars, you need to think about balance. So how do you balance this? Are you going to start check calling 2 pairs and King X? So I'm only talking about balance because we're playing against good regulars. If we're not playing against regulars, I wouldn't even mention this word ever. Like, I hardly mention this word on my stream because we never play against regulars in low stakes games. But in a 350 rebuy, you're going to get a lot of regulars. So balance needs to be something that you know how to do. And by balance, it means that you do the same thing whether you have the nuts or whether you have a bluff. How do you balance this check call on the turn? What nut hands are you going to have that you can include in your range here? Or what strong hands, right? Because otherwise, he knows you always have weak pairs and draws, and he's just going to bet turn, shove river, then what? Your whole range is fucked. You can never call. So you need to have stronger hands in your range if you're going to take this line. So it's up to you. If you want to take this, you need to balance, right? And if you're not going to balance, then take a line that you are balancing, which would be to bet turn. Because you can balance bet turn by having 2 pairs and top pairs and straights by just betting. So balance, you need to think about when you're playing against good regulars. Check raise. I would check raise because it's deceptive. The straight is deceptive. Like, you're more likely going to have a 9, and he might try and bet you off a 9. You know, so I think definitely this is a check raise spot. Bad luck. Wow. Yeah, I mean, he played his hand fine, I think. Secret is I'm getting Twitter, yep. Alright. Bet, fine. Just call. Yeah, seems good. I mean, you can re-raise, but I like it. I mean, your hand strength is very strong, and you want him to just barrel off, so. Very small value bet, like 30,000 induced, yeah, I like it, good. He was bluffing and he decided to not rebluff. Yep, 3-bet with ace-10 seems fine. You're going broke pre-flop. If he decides to put in the 4th bet, you are not folding. Why are we folding this? Nope. Any heads up, you need to play, even against regulars, 90%. Jack 3 suited is well within that range. Like I said, if... I mean, like I said, I'm not the best heads-up player, but from my understanding that playing against regulars, you need to also have limp ranges. You know, so that you can play weak hands differently. You know, you don't have to just raise and play 30 big blind pots if he 3-bets, you know. So, definitely don't want to fold, though. That's not a folding hand. Check call. Good. Check call. Yeah, I'll just check call again. And then check. Bad luck. Nothing you can really do there. Wow. This guy's kind of nitty on rivers. I would go for thin value on that hand, but that's me. I would have owned myself. I kind of like checking back here because it's not a flop that he's going to fold too often. And you need to have a check back range against good players because they're going to play back at you on flops. So you can't just c-bet all the time blindly. So I would include this in my check back range on this flop. Like, I'm tempted to just bet, but I don't think he's going to believe me. So if you check, you can't win. Once you check turn, you cannot win because you can't represent a king anymore. Huh. Kind of interesting. You can bluff catch this because you beat straight draws. Uh, the flush gets there, but I mean, I'm very tempted. Because why would he bet here with a 4 or a 3 or a 2? He just wouldn't, right? He wouldn't bet with a pair. So either he has some miracle king, or he has a flush, or he flopped a straight maybe, but he just called flop. So you'd think some of the time he would check raise straights. So I'm very, very tempted to snap off this bluff and see a hand like 6-8 or like 5-7 sometimes. Now it kind of sucks when he rolls over a6. That would really suck. I'm tempted. I would really think about that one. Not an auto fold for me, for sure. Felt I played tighter because I felt like he would outplay me. Yeah, but you still can't fold buttons heads up, man. You still have to play them just because mathematically you'll win enough in position to make those plays mathematically correct. Yeah, like I said, if you're afraid of getting outplayed, you need to start having limp ranges heads up so that you can play smaller pots in position. I might 3-bet. Folding's okay, I guess. Not that great of a hand. Like, don't fold the jack, same as the last one. He just jams it in for 30 big blinds. Okay, buddy. Call, good. Yeah, it's kind of ugly. You're only really playing for a gut shot. Your flush draw's not even that good. Your redraw. I just fold it, I think. I think like if you want to continue in this hand, you have to represent more than weak showdown value and just check raise bluff. Because even if you check call, he might put you on a queen or a 9 and just barrel you. And you don't want that to happen. You want him to just fold because you have 10 high with a gut shot. So, I mean, check raise bluffing here would be fine, in my opinion, because you can represent true pairs, king 9, queen 9, king queen. You could have in your range. You might 3-bet it sometimes pre-flop. You can also represent really strong draws that you're not folding. You can have the nuts. 10 jack is definitely possible. Yeah, so I really like check raising more than check call. Bet river, you miss. So I make it like... You have to try and represent a queen that you're going for thin value. So maybe 35,000? Yeah, I like it. You're representing a queen. I think it's good. But I don't like the flop play. I think you... On average, you're going to lose that hand against a strong regular. In my opinion, he played that pretty weak. He seems like quite a weak post-flop player to me. CMX Crin. What was that we fold? 9-4? Alright, that was in the big blind. 7-3. You can have that one in your fold range. Seb's being annoying and playing with stuff. Like check call here is okay, because you have the queen draw could be good, and you have a stronger draw than just the gut shot. But like, yeah, I might check raise this as well, as long as you don't fold. Now he's thinking about that last hand, thinking I should have just barreled, and he's barreling now. So, you're gonna win all the money in this hand. No! Just check to him. That's such a good bluff card. Think if you're him and you're sitting with like 6-4 offsuit and you're barreling, think about that card. It's such a good... That's like the best bluff card possible for him. So you need to check to him and let him just barrel off. That's the best bluff card for him. I might check this. It's a board that he's not going to fold very often. Good. Value bet. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, so we get raised. What? What worse hand's gonna call you? That's my question. Stop it, Bobo. Feed you in a minute. So we're rebluffing. We're trying to represent that we're bluffing. I would prefer to use this hand as just a bluff catcher, because you know it's very hard for him to stack off with a 9 after you put in the 4th bet on the turn. Not surprised. Just call, and then you call river. You would have lost anyway, but it's a you win more money on average by taking that line. Because I think when you get it in on the turn, you just always lose. But if you just call, maybe on the river, he continues his bluff and you can bluff catch. Or he might bet smaller and you don't lose your whole stack, or his whole stack. Just call, it's good enough to defend, or 3 bet, both are fine. Fold 6-3, that's fine. Just call, again you can 3 bet that as well. I think you're playing a little too passive, like you want to have more 3 bets than just ace-10 suited. Pretty bad board to continue on. Wow, there's so many hands to go. Holy shit. I'll try my hardest, guys. I like checking back this sometimes as well. You can value bet here. Some straights do get there. You already lose to a 6, but now your other 5s, like you might have had 5-7 maybe, or like 5-8. Yeah, it's not really a big concern. I think I would probably check there. Seems fine to check river. I figured it. I had call with top pair before, so I figured it balanced my range for me to float. Yeah, I understood what you did, Jimmy. Like, but the last time you called, wait, was it top pair? It was a gut shot, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to balance, but in my opinion, you're playing too passively. So what you end up doing is, you're playing passively with 100% of your range. So that your opponent can play, I guess, more perfectly and more aggressive against you, because he can just check when he has nothing and bet when he has it, or like he can play well against you when you're playing passively. I don't know. I just think you need to maybe play a bit more aggressively. I didn't explain that very well, because playing passively is fine in some situations, but yeah, I don't know. I just didn't really like. I think you're playing too passive in the heads up. What happened there? We call and we check fold that. We have the backdoor flush draw, 1 over card, and the backdoor straight draw for a very small c-bet. I would continue here. Just check call again, or you can check fold. I mean, sorry, check raise even. But I probably prefer check calling with that much equity. You can check back these boards as well. It's also hard for you to have an ace, and he probably knows that. So these are also boards that he doesn't fold very often. So now what do? You're barreling off? It seems fine, but if you do this, you have to 3-barrel. So you got to put in this barrel, man. You got to jam. This has to be a jam. If you're taking this line and you don't shove river, you're just spewing money on the turn. You either give up turn or you 3-barrel. There is no middle ground. You got to have the balls to follow through and represent that you have the ace queen, the ace king, the ace 10, the ace 9, the ace 6, the ace 3, the ace 2, the pocket 9s, the 3s, the 6s. Like, you need to represent those hands in 3-barrel. Yep. Like, I see that you just check, that's the worst thing you can do. Either just check turn and give up, or 3-barrel. Or check flop. Check flop's also good, but see, you 3-barrel, he folds, maybe. Right? You jam it all in and he folds. So you make the most exploitable play here by only putting in the 2 barrels. And this is a big difference between guys that play like high stakes and guys that play mid stakes, is they don't recognize 3-barrel spots against regulars where like you're just playing too exploitably. Because this is what your opponents do. He'll call twice and then he'll go, oh, maybe he has it, and he folds river. So this was a spot for you to exploit your opponent and 3-barrel because he's probably folding second pair to 3 barrels. But what ended up happening was he exploited you because he knows that you're only going to put in 2 barrels and you don't have the balls to put in 3. So no balls cost you a lot of money in this spot. Have a plan, man. Have a plan. Raise that. Backdoors don't give that much. Yeah, but it's not just the chance of me hitting. It means that I can then like check raise turns, or you can just play more, right? When you have backdoors. You're right though, they don't give that much, but heads up, they're significant. You can 3-bet, call is fine. If you 3-bet that, you kind of committed to 5-bet. But this guy seems to... Yeah, I like your call there. He's giving up, so if this was me, I'd barrel the shit out of this turn card. It's a really good turn card to bluff. So, to me, he's also a weak, passive heads-up player. And I don't know why you're turning this into a bluff. You obviously had the best hand on the turn because he didn't bet again. So, you're trying to get him to fold a 9? What are you representing? You're representing a 4? Your bet doesn't... Your line makes no sense. Because you check call flop. So when you check call flop, you're representing a jack or a 9 or a draw. So the only hand you're representing here is a 4 or queen 10. But even with those, I don't know, like your sizing doesn't make sense. So I would snap you here pretty light. But maybe he just has nothing and he can't call, but he might raise you, who knows. I just think that I would use this as a bluff catcher rather than turning it into a bluff. So much to talk about heads up, guys. So much. Check back, call turn, check river, standard, call, check call. King high on jack 4-2 is pretty good value. Like, if you're calling pre-flop with this hand, you can't just fold on these boards. So if you don't want to check call, this is why you also have to check. You also have to have check raises in your range, so that you can look at boards like this and check raise them sometimes as a bluff or with value. So this is why playing aggressively also will get you more value in spots where you're just folding because you're being too passive. My opinion. Again, I'm not the best heads-up player. Maybe I'm way off mark, but this is not a fold. This is how I play heads up. Some guys in the chat probably are way better than I am. Of course, there are people out there that are way better than me, but this is just my understanding. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. So we're calling 10-5, fine. We're floating on ace king 8. I mean, if you're gonna float, this is not the board to do it, because this is the board where he's definitely 3-barreling, or he should be. So are you gonna call down with 10 high? No. So you just end up calling flop for no reason, then folding turn. This guy's so weak. Like, you're lucky that you're playing against a weak player, because you're getting into situations where you can bluff him on. Like, he's giving you the chance to win. If this is a good player, you would never win these pots. So you bet river 30,000. And you probably win, because he's weak. Yeah, that's what happens, but you're lucky this guy's pretty terrible at heads up as well. Couldn't he have a 9 and an ace 7 hand? Yeah, of course. But well, I don't know what you're trying to say though. So are you trying to get him to fold a 9? I don't see. Seems to work often betting third pot and river. Yeah, it works against him. So you're trying to get him to fold a 9. Again, like, I think that he just doesn't hand read very well. Because if this was me playing against you, your line makes no sense, because you wouldn't bet a jack in this spot or a 9. And those are the most likely hands you actually have on the flop. So to me, I would say you're full of shit, and I would not fold a 9. But, he's not like that. Because the king should scare you. If you have a jack or a 9, you're not going to value bet river with those hands, most likely, right? Yeah, alright. Where the hell was I? Queen 3? Do we... No. We didn't see aces, so... 10-5. Yeah, like... Stop it. God damn it, I gotta go give him food in a second. Like, you're very, very lucky that this guy's too passive as well, because he's playing very fit or fold. You're able to make these floats on Ace King 8 with 10-5, and you're able to get to a river, and then your bluff actually works, because this guy's playing too passive, too ABC. Yeah. Just hand reading. Like, this guy's... I don't know what he's doing. He's giving you the win, basically. I would sometimes check this, but your hand strength, you're not going to win by checking. Because he's just going to bet turn and you have to fold because you have no equity. Again, he's so passive, this guy. Bet. Wow, this guy's terrible. I'd probably 3-bet there sometimes. I've not fold 5-3 suited. Like, this sucks. Like, you're 3-betting again, and it's the second time you 3-bet, but you only 3-bet with hands. So he's just going to fold. But if you're more aggressive, you're actually going to get action when you have aces. So, you know, to be honest, if this was me and I was playing this passively, I would not 3-bet here because he's going to fold. You know he's folding. You 3-bet once in 80 hands. Just call. I'd check back this, definitely, because he's not going to fold and you have really good showdown value. Yeah, this sucks. This is... He's playing more aggressive, but what are you going to do? How do you play back? Like, I think this is super exploitable. C-betting king queen on this board and then folding. He knows you have nothing on this board. Jack 3-6. It's very hard for you to have any draws, so he's bluffing this board correctly, and you're just bet folding. So the better play there, in my opinion, is to just check back or bet not fold. Bet call. But what you do by bet calling is you play a bigger pot, you know, with king queen high. So good luck. Okay, check call, it's fine. Check call, it's fine. Check. Well, this guy's passive, so he's putting in the second barrel. We'll just give him credit and fold. That's fine. Don't fold a queen. Again, 3-betting with the nuts. Of course you have the nuts, because you only 3-bet with the nuts. Nine 4 is fine. 5-6, don't fold. Call. I think I'll call here because his bet's small and the 10, I don't know, it feels like he's trying to push you off a draw. It is only queen high though, and it's awkward because he might be bluffing with ace high, king high, and then you still lose. Because you can't really donk river. I mean, you might be able to, but it's hard to represent, you know, trips. It's hard to make trips. Tough hand. You can also check raise flop. There's many ways to play heads up. You can check this. Good. You can turn it into a bluff. Is he going to fold much? You're already beating all the hands anyway. Like, he's not folding a queen or a king, and you already beat everything else, so just check. Call river, whatever. You're getting 4-1, and you probably have the best hand. Yep, bad luck. Raise, good. Fold. Raise. Oh. 3-bet. Okay, bro. Raise, 5-3. Yeah. Raise, fine. Oh, now we're just calling aces. Call. Like, I want to induce a raise. That's the plan, right? I don't think he has a jack because he would have bet turn. So how do you get him to call you with king high and a 9? Or bluff you? A small bet, I'd say. 40,000, I like here. Bit too big. Whatever. Yay, Ace King. Whee! Easy game. God, that's a terrible reshove with Ace 4 offsuit. Okay, blah blah blah. Two big blinds, blah 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 blah. Alright. Yeah. You certainly have some heads up leaks, but that's again my opinion. I'm not the best heads up player. There are better people even on Twitch that play heads up better than me, like Primordial. So my advice would be to be more aggressive, heads up, and against regulars, you need to balance. But I don't know. I guess it still depends on the player. I think playing against that guy, you got lucky that he was terrible, and you got pretty good value from a lot of spots where against good players you would never get value or never even get the chance to win. So like if this was a good player, you would have lost this, I would say like 7 out of 10 times. I think you just got lucky that this guy was terrible. Alright.